Hello YouTube, welcome back. I'm back again, and I have with me today the LG G3, which is the latest flagship from LG, recently released just a few weeks back. Today we're going to be discussing the battery life on the LG G3. Before I get into further discussions about how the battery performs and how is in day-to-day use, let's get and have a look at the battery size first. I'm going to remove the back case. Thank God this time around it is removable. On the G2 you could not remove the battery. On the G3 you can remove the battery and replace it with a new one. So it is 3000 milliampere. This is the same size as on the G2. So anybody expecting the same battery life as on the G2 would obviously be mistaken. I'm not discouraging you, but it's common sense. The LG G2 had a 3000 milliampere battery with a 1080p screen. This is a Quad HD screen with the same battery, so it can never compete with the battery life on the G2. And as we all know, G2 was the king of battery life. But in saying that, the battery life on this phone is still very decent. How decent, we'll find out in a minute. Okay, so let's put the case back on the phone and let's get into deep stats to see how the battery has been performing. I've had the phone for nearly 3 weeks now, and I've been taking screenshots all the way along ever since I've been using the phone. I know I can talk a lot over the phone and I can say all sorts of stuff and blah blah blah, this, but unless I don't show you guys evidence, you should not believe me anyway if I haven't got no evidence on me. Okay, so two things you need to remember. Firstly, this is a Quad HD screen phone, so you have a lot of pixels. We are talking about 538 pixels per inch. This is the highest PPI on a screen at the moment on any phone in the market. And second, it has 2560 times 1440 screen resolution, which is also among one of the highest available in the market. So keeping that in mind, you should not expect Galaxy Note kind of battery life, or say the LG G2 kind of battery life, but still it matches the HTC One M8 and the Galaxy S5 easily, no problems. Okay, also you need to quickly remind you that I've been keeping the brightness around 70%. At the moment it's 80 because I wanted to make sure that you guys could see clearly on the camera. But normally in all my screenshots that I'm going to be showing you in a few minutes, I have kept my brightness on 70%. If you're going to have a Quad HD screen phone and if you're going to keep the brightness all the way down, like I see most of people, what's the point of having a Quad HD screen or even 1080p if you're going to be like this? I see a lot of iPhone users trying to save on the Retina display, because we know that the batteries on the iPhones are quite smaller, so people are trying to look into screens on which you can hardly see anything. So LG have done a good job. Even if you keep the brightness up to say about 70%, that's what I've normally been keeping, the battery still doesn't drain as quick as it would if you were to go beyond 70. But in this video, just to make sure that you guys can see clearly, I'll keep it around 80%. So that you guys can see the screen and everything clearly. Okay, let's get into the screenshots and I will show you what the data that I've been collecting on the battery life for the past couple of weeks. First of all, obviously you need to know it's a Qualcomm Snapdragon 801 chipset clocked at 2.46, or if you round it off is 2.5 gigahertz. It's a quad-core processor, and the phone comes with 2 gig of RAM. Okay, as we know that the Qualcomm Snapdragon 801 is a very efficient chipset. It has already proven its track record on the HTC One M8 and the Galaxy S5. So both phones have good endurance, and we have high expectations from the G3 as well. Okay, next screenshot. Okay, this was the very first screenshot that I took a few weeks back. As you can see, 13 hours and 18 minutes of usage on the battery. The estimated time remaining, if I was to keep on using at the rate of 10% every hour, in the last 3 hours, then the battery would have easily lasted me for 18 hours. Wi-Fi was on all this time, and I made quite a few phone calls. I used the phone for downloading some songs, and I was also taking a few snaps, testing the camera and stuff. So it was a pretty moderate heavy usage, and the phone by the time I came back home in the evening time still had 57% left after 13 hours and 18 minutes of usage. That did include I think about 5 to 6 hours of standby time, which was when I wasn't using the phone collectively, I'm saying. But all in all, as you can see, that the battery life on the phone is fairly good, not bad. Okay, next up, I'm not going to just jump to conclusion just on the basis of one screenshot, but I'll be showing you various screenshots just to reassure you that the battery on the G3 is not too bad, if not the best. Okay, this was in one of the nights I left the phone fully charged, and I slept for that was over the weekend, and I slept for 9 hours and 47 minutes. When I got up, the phone still had 100%. So this actually matches the standby times of the G2. LG promised in their G3 event that the battery life will not be affected by the Quad HD screen, and also they promised that the standby times on the phone will actually match any 1080p phone in the market. I was very keen to test that, and I'm happy to tell you that yes, they are absolutely right, because I had my G2 and my HTC One M8 next to the G3, all these three phones fully charged up before I went to bed, and I left took them off the charger, and when I got up, the G2 was 100%, the G3 was 100%, as you can see, but the HTC M8 had lost 3%, so it was down to 97%. Standby times on the LG phones are very good. I've been recently very impressed with the way LG have optimized their phones, especially for standby times. HTC M8 hasn't got the best standby time. It's not too bad, don't get me wrong, but in day-to-day use, the HTC One M8 performs slightly better than the G3 because of the 1080p screen. Anyways, so the standby times on the G3 are very good. As you can see, nearly after 10 hours of leaving it alone, the standby time, the battery even did not go 1% down. So good work done by LG. Okay, next up, I used the phone only for just to check. This was actually during the standby time. When I picked the phone up, I used it for just one minute, I think, and the battery dropped 1%. So it was probably consuming all night long, and when I touched it, it lost 1% straight away. Okay. Also, as you can see here, this was a fairly heavy usage. My usage normally includes WhatsApp, a few calls on Viber, watching a few YouTube clips, and things like, for instance, checking emails, listening to music on my way to work, text messaging, and a few odd calls here and there. And the phone was able to cope up with me all day long. As you can see, when I came back in the evening, nearly after 13 hours and 39 minutes, that includes the standby time as well, the battery was still at 50%. During most of these tests, like I said earlier, the brightness was kept at 70%. Now, for quite a few people, it might be very high. Some people like to keep their screens quite dim. So the lower you keep, the better you're going to get out of the battery. If you keep the brightness, say, around 50% or 60%, then you will see the battery will even last you longer. I want to quickly show you something. As you can see already, let's let the camera focus. Sorry about that. Okay, let's have a look if we can do it. Okay, as you can see already in the previous screenshot, that the screen was actually only being consumed by the system. 45% battery life was consumed by the screen. Now this is really good. This is a Quad HD screen we're talking of. I've kept the brightness at 70%, which is nearly 3/4 of the total brightness of the screen, and the battery is still the screen is still consuming less than 50%. This was the exact kind of optimizations that LG was talking about. They did say the Quad HD screen will not affect the battery life because of certain clever technology that they have used. I don't want to discuss that because most people will get confused eventually. But in short, even if you keep the brightness up to 70%, which is fairly high, and a lot of people don't even keep it that high, you will still get very good battery life out of the LG G3 because of the clever optimizations by LG. Okay, we have discussed this already, so next on again, this is my G3 case which I got. I'm not going to discuss it here. There is a separate video for it already in my channel. Okay, again, I was able to get 15 hours and 8 minutes. As you can see, the last 3 hours in use was 30%, which is fairly high. So I was using the phone quite heavily in the last 3 hours, and still the battery had 30% juice left with Wi-Fi on, and 15 hours and 8 minutes of usage. Once again, like I said, if you've been keeping an eye on other Quad HD screen phones in the market, like the Oppo Find 7 or I think there's one more. Their battery lives have been terrible. G3 so far is giving you the best battery life on a Quad HD screen phone available globally. Okay, so next up again, another screenshot. As you can see, I used the phone moderately, 12% in the last 3 hours, and in 3 hours and 9 minutes the phone had still 88% battery left, with brightness kept at around 70%. Once again, if you are a moderate user, you can easily take the G3 into its second day, as long as you're not on it all the time. Most people that you will hear complain or the reviews saying the battery is bad is because they are trying to push the phone to the limit. They are keeping the brightness at 100%. They're doing all the aggressive testing, and in them kind of test, Quad HD screen will never perform and equal the 1080p counterparts. So if you're a moderate user, like I said, if you keep the brightness around 60 to 70%, there's a very good chance that the phone will last you full day, as long as you're not gaming or streaming and using the phone for normal stuff like emails, phone calls, WhatsApp, Viber, emails, that kind of stuff. It should last you pretty much all day. Again, another screenshot. By the time I came back in the evening, I had 58% of battery life still left, and I had 19 hours and 38 minutes of usage on the battery with moderate use, as you can see, 11% in the last 3 hours. Once again, 24 hours I achieved, and this was me using the phone quite moderately. I actually purposely left myself using the phone too aggressively because I wanted to see how the phone's battery will last if I was to use the phone moderately. And it easily gave me beyond a day, and 24 hours or 34 minutes, as you can see, and I still had 43% of battery life left by the time I went to bed. Okay, once again, I kept the phone going on. It's from the same screenshot from the last time. I left it on like this. Another hour passed by and only 1% battery dropped. LG's standby timings are very, very good. Even if you are on Wi-Fi and you leave the phone on standby, the phone will still perform decently. Another one, the same as it. I never charged the Bing. I kept on using it. I switched from my Wi-Fi to my 4G, as you can see in the screenshot. And obviously with 4G the battery will drain slightly quicker, but I was using the phone a lot more than before, 16% in the last 3 hours, as you can see, and still the phone refused to give up. So as you can see, the phone went well into the second day, and if you were to sleep and get up the next day, the chances are around midday you'll probably need to charge your phone again. Another day I came back home, evening time, as you can see, 3 past 21, 9 past 20, 3 past 9, and 18 hours, 48 minutes of battery life with fairly moderate use. As you can see, every time I've come back in the evening, I'm getting, by the time I get back home, whether it's 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, the battery is around the 40% mark after a moderate heavy usage of on the G3. So guys, do not worry about the G3's battery life. It's not as bad as some of the reviewers say, as long as you are using the phone normally, like using WhatsApp, Viber, checking emails, making phone calls, keeping the brightness around 60 to 70%, the phone should easily last you a day. That's why a lot of reviewers have given it thumbs up as well. A lot of reviewers have said the battery life is decent. Like I said, it cannot match the Galaxy Note 3 or the LG G2 or the Sony Xperia Z2, which are the king of battery lives. But it's a fairly decent battery life phone and should last you with moderate heavy use pretty much all day. Another one here, I really used the phone a lot. This was proper heavy use. As you can see, 45% I was checking emails, sending messages, had a phone call to receive, and I composed an email, and I was constantly on it for 3 hours. And the battery really took its hit and it went down. But still, before it went down, the champion phone was able to give you 21 hours and 27 minutes. This is a Quad HD screen we're talking of, with a 538 pixels per inch, 2560 into 1440 resolution. This is not a bad attempt by LG at all. They were daring, they took the step, they made the very first Quad HD globally available Quad HD phone, even though there were few before the LG, like the Oppo Find 7, but LG have done the best job so far on a Quad HD screen phone available right now in the market. Once again, you can see 9 hours, and I was using the phone moderately in the last 3 hours, but before that I was using it very aggressively, and the battery went down to around 40%. in the afternoon time, and I had a total time of 9 hours and 21 minutes. I took as many screenshots as I could because I wanted to make sure that I could give you guys enough evidence for you to have build your faith in the G3's battery. Like I said, if you're going to be on the phone all the time, the chances are you're not going to get more than 5 or 6 hours of screen time. But if you're like a normal user, checking your email, making phone calls and stuff, the chances are the phone will last you a day easily. Same again, heavy usage in the last 3 hours, 2 hours and 18 minutes, 67%. Now you can see I was using the phone fairly heavily, non-stop typing on WhatsApp and messaging and emails, and in 2 hours and 18 minutes I lost almost 40%. Like I said, if you're on the phone constantly tick doing stuff and not leaving the phone alone, the chances are you're not going to get more than 5 or 6 hours of screen time. Yet again, 12 hours and 49 minutes with moderate use, Wi-Fi switched on, 13% in the last 3 hours, and the battery lasted me pretty much all day. So guys, there you have it. This is the LG G3's battery life. I have taken as many screenshots as I could to show you the battery life on the G3 is not too bad, and it matches the flagship phones of 2014, which are the HTC M8 and the Galaxy S5. It surely cannot match the LG G2 and the Xperia Z2 because those batteries are far too big, plus also their endurance and optimizations are world class. Even the G2 is even better than the Note 3, and so is the Xperia Z2. Alright guys, so there you have it. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. I have got a lot more videos coming up. I'll be discussing the performance of the G3. Also, I'll be checking the gaming performance. I'll be uploading a video very soon on the gaming as well, and a lot more videos to come. Please do subscribe if you haven't done so. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you have any questions, please ask me on the comment section. Thank you.